G.I. Joe has been my favorite topic to talk about in the last couple of years, so you can never have too much of a good thing. And I know when we talk Joe, Hasbro always comes to mind as that leading franchise that's had the brand, really incepted it back in 1964 with the original Action Soldier and the 12-inch line. And then over the years, Alatoy got involved in making something kind of similar. And then, of course, the Action Man and Action Force stuff has worked its way out west. And while we're sort of introducing that topic of international heroes, the one thing I haven't really gotten to talk about on this channel a whole lot is some of the stuff from South America. And in Brazil back in the day, there was a company called Estrela, and they brought in some stuff like G.I. Joe. They've got some Transformer stuff. I have some mini bots with the name Estrela on them. But, excuse me, in order to do this justice, I did watch an old video trying to look up the history of the Brazilian Estrela Forca Fera stuff, and I came across an old friend's video that I hadn't seen yet. And if you haven't subscribed to the Articulated Point YouTube channel yet, you should check the description below, because returning to the channel, we got my good friend, Patrick, not Picard, Stewart.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. So when you were here the first time, it was just a cordial invite. Now that you're here twice, I smell a bit of a trend.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be fun to be on every once in a while.
Well, if I don't drive you crazy, or vice versa, you're welcome on anytime, like I said last time. So
I really appreciate it. Yeah, you mentioned this topic to me, and I was like, yeah, of course, I always like talking about that.
So for those who haven't seen it yet, and I didn't add it to my slideshow, so I'm just going to pull it up as a separate tab here on my computer. You can see Patrick and his partner in crime there, Philip, on this thing called Talking Point G.I. Joe's Imported Zoo. And when I was trying to look up the history of some of the G.I. Joe Estrela stuff, this was like one of the first hits. And I'm like, oh, they did a video a few years back? Oh, my God. I can't believe I missed that. So, yeah.
Yeah, Philip titled that one Imported Zoo, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That does make a lot of sense, because we talked, more than those, but the imported part of it made a lot of sense. Not just because of the fact that it's from Brazil, but also the way that they sourced these animals.
Yes,
they're sort of imported into the G.I. Joe toy line.
And I just realized, I think I just said that I was looking at Forca Fera stuff. That search does come up, but I realized when I first found this video, I was actually looking for the Dino Hunters thing.
Yes,
right?
it covers a little bit of both.
Yes, because the Dino Hunters, there's a backstory on that one too, which we'll touch on that a tiny bit, even if it's not the main topic, because you'll see Philip hold up two dinosaurs, not the same ones. Looks like it, but it's not. So, yeah. And I'm glad to know that your last Transformers video is doing very, very well on the channel as well. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the help that you've given me by having me on here as well. But yeah, it's been a surprise. It's about maybe a 7-minute video, I think, on some vintage toys that were also not quite ever Transformers, but they're adjacent. So fun.
Yep. So it's interesting how Patrick and I really only got into talking to each other earlier this year. And I find out he's not just big into Joe, he's big into Transformers, but he's big into pre-production stuff. He's big into international stuff. He's into the pre-Transformer stuff, which is all up my wheelhouse. And it's like, I know you mentioned that we actually met back in 2023 at Joe Fest, I think you said, and I forgot that. And I said last time we met in 2025, but that does make sense, because when I ran into you at the 2025 Joe Fest, we started talking. I'm like, there's something very familiar about this conversation. Like, this is not the first time we have talked. So either I talked to your twin brother in 2023, but since you don't have a twin brother, that was actually you.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, you were at your booth, and I think that you were just being bombarded by people. So we talked briefly, and then I thought, you know what, I got to let this guy sell some stuff. Yeah. So I moved along.
Yeah, but like I said, there was something, when you're talking something on camera, it's one thing, but when you see someone in person, you kind of get their vibe and their body language. They're like, this is not the first time we've talked, even though I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, but I always like talking about Estrela stuff, because as a G.I. Joe collector, I first learned about the Action Force stuff, like maybe 91, 92, somewhere around there. I learned about the Action Force things, and those became a collecting goal of mine. But then that gave me the taste for international things. And then when I realized how much very different stuff was available in South America and how cool some of it looked, that's whenever I kind of was set on looking at that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you introduce the topic with justice, because some of these images are going to look very familiar to you.
Okay. Well, yeah. So this is a set of 4 Forca Fera. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but I try. And they were released by Estrela, the company that was releasing G.I. Joe in Brazil. And it's a subset of 4, but there are 2 G.I. Joes and 2 Cobras. So you have pictured on here on the left, the 2 Joes, and on the right, the 2 Cobras. No, I have that wrong. The Cobras are on the outsides. The Joes are in the middle. I remember it because the cats are the Joe team, and the ones that aren't cats are the Cobras. It's easy to remember the big boa repaint, Kangor. He's a Cobra. But the other Cobra is Urzor, the one all the way on the left. So you have Urzor on the left. Tigor is next, and he's a Joe. Then Lentor, and if he looks like Backblast to you, he should, because it's literally just a Backblast figure. More specifically, it's the 89 Backblast figure, the one that has China written on it. And then Kangor on the right. So Urzor, Tigor, Lentor, Kangor.
And while you may have felt bad about which ones were Joe, which ones were Cobra, I actually all this time just assumed Urzor was a Joe because he was a repaint of Repeater. So
right.
You know what? I got that wrong all along.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to remember. But on the backs of the package, he has that enemy stamp next to his picture,
which we'll get to. And these are just screenshots directly from yours and Philip's video here. So I believe the commercials pronounce this as Commandos M Acao, I believe is how it is, even though I've been calling it Commandos M Acao this entire time, just because, pronunciations be damned. But I love the art and just how smoothly, I don't know whose collection this is, but the bubbles peeled off very smoothly on this one.
They did. Are these pictures that I posted?
These are photos directly out of your... Other than the photos of Urzor later, which is the only one I have, the rest are just stolen directly from you.
So, the first few that I got, I want to say all of them except for Lentor. So photos all the way on the left, that number 1, number 3, and number 4, I actually purchased from Anthony, who was also working on Yojo.com. We were both working on Yojo at the time. He decided to get rid of his foreign collection and actually most of his G.I. Joes. And I bought a lot of the figures that were not his U.S. collection because of the fact that those at that point were the figures I didn't have. But he didn't have a Lentor. So then I went to eBay for that. So I think that I cut that one off the card, and the rest of them he had taken off the card. So pretty clean.
I gotcha. Yeah. I gotcha. Well, it got me inspired because this is going to be a bit of a lesson for people who don't know much about the Brazilian line of G.I. Joe, right? Like I've got a few items, like I've got the Cobra de Acao and the Alpinista, but after a while, all my focus went to Action Force for the foreign stuff. And then, because Estrela was just a carryover because Transformers, like I've got a Bumble Jumper from Transformers. But once I saw your guys' video, all of a sudden I was like, right, I was really fascinated by this because it's kind of like Tiger Force in a way. I think that's kind of what Forca Fera is supposed to be, right? So, or do I have that wrong?
Well, they have their own Forca Tigre.
Well,
that was like a Tiger Force. But
with Arpuro and the shipwreck.
Yeah,
sorry, you're right.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where these come from though, because one of the things that's really interesting is that sometimes whenever things would be released outside of Hasbro proper, because you have like Fun School is actually a joint venture between Hasbro and Madras Rubber Factory. If you look at some of the changes on the figures, they actually revert back to an earlier design. Like, for example, Scrap Iron has a flesh neck on the Fun School figure. Well, that's because of the fact that Scrap Iron originally was going to have a flesh neck, and then they changed it to red, on his torso. So you can kind of see there, I'm using that as an example of where a thing would be made in another country and it would actually revert back to an earlier design that Hasbro had. Going to Estrela specifically, if you look at Force Electronica, they released the Tiger Force Outback as Forestero, I believe. And to that extent, you can kind of see that some of the things that they were releasing weren't necessarily designs that they were making, but in some way could be interpreted as that. So whenever I look at these, there's a long-winded way of getting back to this. I have to wonder, were these something that they created, or were they something that had been shelved that they decided that would have some life, and then they have these animals that they can put with them? I'm not sure. And then you have that interview that's also in our video.
Yes.
That potentially there was going to be a life for these in the United States. So who knows?
Yes. And I think you mentioned in that video that the timing of that interview was like right after these had dropped, because these dropped in like 93 or something like that. So it's possible that G.I. Joe was actually going to do an imported like animal set, and this would have been a candidate for that, an obvious candidate for that. So
yeah, it would make a lot of sense. Clearly they were looking at animals, and the animals from this weren't sourced from the same way as the Dino Hunters set. So whenever she mentions in that interview that they were thinking about doing a mail-away set of, I think she calls them Safari Joes, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Whenever she mentions that, it kind of makes my brain run wild with possibilities, because obviously that didn't happen. These seem to be the most likely thing that would fit the bill for that. But there are other possibilities of they could have just made their own animals, or they may have had another source for animals to pair with some Joes, because that's fun. Like, Joes with animals sell. So why wouldn't you make a mail-in that would have been a set of Safari Joes? I think we all would have loved that.
And we didn't see these animals here in any way, shape, or form, which we're going to get into who actually made these animals, which is part of the talk. And I just realized on the next slide, if you look at Urzor, he does have that Cobra logo right below where Kangor is, which good call on that one.
Yeah, so I guess that means that the Cyclofera is a Joe vehicle. The Dreadnought tricycle is actually for the good guys this time around.
So for those who are in the audience there, and I like to pride myself on being a historian, but when Patrick's here, I can kind of let my guard down and just, kind of copy his notes. No, you're shaking your head.
I try, but the reason why I get credited for that is that I know a lot of the people to go to for information whenever I don't know. That's been my quickest way of making sure that I learn more quickly is going to the right people. A lot of the people in the Joe Declassified group, and it's been great for modern stuff to be with a full force. He knows tons about what's coming out, and it's been a lot of fun.
So between multiple Chris M's, Chris McLeod, Chris Murray,
knowing all the Chris's and the Phillips of the world.
Yes, so you got Phil Donnelly. Are we missing a Phillip here as well, or that's
no, I don't know. I'm just thinking of that one Phillip.
Yeah, I was thinking about my friend Phil Stewart from my college days, but see, his name is kind of a hybrid of yours and
of the two of us.
Yeah. So when I saw your guys' names, I was like, why does this also seem familiar? Because
it feels like there should be a Patrick Donnelly. That seems like a more likely name, even. So.
Well, I'm gonna steal that as my Facebook troll name when you get a weird message from me on April 1st one of these years. So yeah, I mean, look at these characters directly. This is the only one I have in my collection. But I thought that, pulling this up and just kind of giving people the spread of what it looks like, the bear, which we're going to talk about where that came from relatively soon here. But I did not realize for the longest time that he was a repaint of Repeater, because the mustache gives him a completely different personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so adding something small like that really goes a long way. It kind of makes you think that they were really making mistakes sometimes when they didn't take advantage of the possibility of just adding some facial hair to a figure in order to differentiate them.
100%, right? But like, See, for me, I think I was actually watching your video when I was like, "Oh my god, he is Repeater!" Right? And this whole time, I thought at least the head was newly tooled, and then I looked at him like, "No, it's not. It's literally just a repainted mustache on there." I'm like, "That is very, very cool." Just that they could actually just disguise it like that. Um,
Yeah.
but the one thing, like probably the most eye-opening thing I learned from you and Philip on this was where the animals came from. I mean, they weren't actually tooled by Estrela or Hasbro, or maybe they were, but they were copied.
Right. It seems like looking at the quality of the tooling and of the molds that, and see, even that's tough because you have the original there on the left, made by the Bergen Toy and Novelty Company, otherwise known as Beton, BE Bergen, TO Toy, and Novelty. So that would sometimes get put on there. You have the original one there on the left, but even they had multiple iterations where, you know, they probably wore out their tooling and had to make another, and so it's hard to tell. Did Estrela purchase the molds, or did they copy them? It definitely seems that they purchased them, because there does seem to be a time period where you no longer see new Bergen or Beton versions coming out, and then suddenly the Estrela ones are available. But there are differences between the two. It's just a matter of debate of whether or not those changes were made at Bergen, or if that was a change made because of new tooling at Estrela.
One of the most interesting things I thought in the video is you opened it up by talking about how the search for G.I. Joe information took you all the way back to 1938, which is when Bergen started. That's when Bergen switched from tin toys to plastic. They'd been around for a few years before that. And Estrela was founded in 1937, is what I saw online. And it's interesting because Bergen shut down in the late 50s, and Estrela kept going to the 80s. So it's like it's a case of when Estrela used these in the 90s, right? They also had released the animals on their own before they became part of Forca Fera. But
Yeah.
I don't think there's we actually know how far back Estrela made them. Did they make them in the 80s, 70s? I don't think that was actually ever confirmed. Was it? Because
no, I don't know how far back. It's one of those things where you can you can find an example and show that it was at least that far back, but you can't prove a negative and say that it wasn't any earlier.
Yeah.
And as soon as you try to do that, you know, one would be found, and then it would kind of negate the things that we were saying. But
yeah,
I don't know how far back to go.
Yes, right. I mean, we just know that Bergen ends in the late 50s, and sometime after
That's right.
Estrela starts making them. But the thing is, there's also a long period there between 1958 when Bergen shuts down and 1993 when Estrela gets these. You know, it's possible that they, like you said, they bought the tooling wore out, they reduplicated their own tooling, right, to keep going, because that's decades in between and lots of these being churned out. It's not like, you know, an indie toy company today might make a few thousand of each product. That tooling is good for a long time. But these were being sold in little baggies in stores and things like that, and circus sets and things like that. Right?
Yeah.
So,
these are the kind of thing that in the United States you would find with a header card and in a bag, and there would just be a bunch of them lumped in there together. But earlier on, they weren't. There was actually like a boxed set that was a circus set with a bunch of the animals in it, along with like a clown and a lion tamer, I think.
Exactly. And the tooling, I mean, the grooves and everything on these look so similar, you'd think it's the same tooling, or maybe they bought them and reverse engineered them, but technology wasn't so good back then that it was easy to do that. You know what I mean? Especially at a scale that's so similar, if not the same. Right?
So, well, sometimes you have a little bit of loss in size whenever you are copying things over and creating new tooling. That's why, like the modern Joes, like a prototype one of those, they call it a 1-to-1, but really it's 104% the size of a figure. And so whenever you're looking at some specific examples, you can see that the Estrela versions are just a tiny bit smaller than the Bergen ones. And that makes me think that there was some element of taking the original and copying it, and perhaps the additional details, because some of the details, like the ears on the Kangaroo, are different. Some of the lines are a little more crisp. It seems like maybe they copied them into wax, you know, cleaned them up as much as they could, and then made their own tooling. That's what it seems like.
And it's just unfortunate because, like, with Hasbro, we have the Kirk Bazigians, the Vinny DeLevas. With Palatoy, we've got the Bob Breekins and the Roger Morrisons and the John Holmeses. We don't have somebody in Estrela who could tell us, yeah, we bought the tooling and then we had to recast it, or we had to
Right.
we had to reform the tooling or something, or no, we just knocked it off when they went out of business. We just took their thing and we reverse engineered. We don't have anyone to confirm that for us, unfortunately, with Estrela. But it's interesting how this was just discovered, right? Like, did you find this on the original information on the His Tank thread, or did you find this somewhere else about the whole thing?
You know what? I wish I could remember who told me first. It wasn't the His Tank thread. No, I think it may have been Kevin Watts or Drew Haggerty mentioned it to me a long time ago. It's tough. It's tough to remember because I think that I knew that information not long after I even knew about Forca Fera, and that would have been late 90s, early 2000s. I would have found that out. I don't know. I think that I knew that they were taken from another toy line.
Yeah.
But the interest in researching and finding all of the information about where they were taken from, that wasn't something I necessarily thought. I think I did right away. I don't remember. I don't remember where I found that out.
But it's just really cool that, like, we see Joe in the 80s and 90s with Estrela being 1993 for this. And then we find out that the Bergen stuff is actually from either the 50s or earlier,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just amazing how it all kind of weaves and ties together, and how the Bergen Toy and Novelty Company stuff ended up in a G.I. Joe product long after it had been defunct. So, yeah.
Yeah, going back all the way to when our plastic was a new thing.
Yeah,
for
that's
toys.
right. So yeah, so we see the actual, if we look at the Beton or Beton, the short form of Bergen Toy Novelty, we see the actual, like, copyright under there, whereas on the Estrela one it's not there. So that's just a cool thing that I got from your video.
Yeah, and you could see that the feet got a little bit wider. In the previous picture, you could see that the toes were a little bit thicker on the Estrela Bear.
Yeah, it's not because... Oh, sorry, I just realized the top image, that's actually my hand holding that, because I just realized. So I wonder if I just didn't zoom in. No, it's thicker. It's definitely thicker.
Maybe actually they're thicker on the Beton, but if you look at the previous picture, the toes, see how the toes on the Estrela one definitely go up a little bit higher.
They do.
Than on the Beton one.
Interesting. See, we're finding new stuff even just going through it over here. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, as we move along, now we see where Tigor or Tigor or whatever came from as Recoil initially, but he actually kept his weapon, which is interesting. So,
that's a good point. Yeah, he did get to keep his weapon. He got Scoop's legs, but kept his weapon.
Oh, he did switch. Did he switch legs?
Scoop's legs, yeah.
Aha! I'm just realizing the double strap on the legs and the peg on Tigor or Tigor that's not there on Recoil. So that's why you're here. Looking this through, so people can see the comparison there when we look left and right from the Joe to the Estrela version from the 90s. So that is very cool. And once again, doing a bit of a comparison here, this is directly out of your video here, where we've got the Estrela version versus the Bergen one from decades earlier, the filled in cavity at the bottom, right?
Yeah, I would imagine that was just done to save plastic. It probably was a lot cheaper on a variable cost, the per unit cost, to be using less plastic each time. So make them hollow.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easy thing to close up on the tooling as well, right? Or open up again in the tooling. So sometimes tooling, you can take that piece in and out. So, and because Bergen did both, right? They didn't just do the closed thing at the bottom, like we saw with Urzor earlier, the bear. They had an open cavity at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. You can find, whenever I was trying to get them, I wanted the oldest samples that I could find, but there are all kinds of them, especially if you want to start collecting different paint patterns. Like, even in our video, you can see the two different paint patterns that Philip and I ended up with. I think that probably was something that changed frequently, because I didn't really see a lot of similar paint patterns whenever things were painted. at Bergen. So
were you able to trace through production dates how far back you were able to get, like what the oldest Bergen toy you were able to get was, or no?
no, I don't remember. If I did, I don't remember. I think it was like 1930 something. There is there was a website that was dedicated to all of the Bergen animals and different versions of them, and you could see a lot of those there as well. I just don't remember where that is right now, so I'm sorry that I can't.
Oh, no, that's not a problem.
It might be in the notes on our video, possibly, or it's on a Wikipedia.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because I know that the circus sets were popular in the 50s. 1938, I wasn't sure if they were actually making these or if that's just when Bergen switched and started making plastic instead of tin. That's the only thing I found in mine.
Right.
Because that's, just because Bergen switched materials to like the cellulose acetate or something, some form of plastic. And that's why that origin, that's why that date is important. But I wasn't sure exactly when the
You're getting a lot of loose toys too. I have like, I don't think the animals actually have a date on them.
Yeah. It makes sense if they didn't, right? Because a lot of times they put it on the packaging or something like that. So,
right.
Yeah. No, and just moving along with the rest of the Forca set here. This is Backblast, like you said earlier. It's basically just the same figure from the 89.
Yeah,
Backblast.
it really is. He's the outlier of the four where he was not produced. He was not manufactured by Estrela. He was manufactured most definitely by Hasbro because he's exactly the same as the later Backblast figures.
Yeah, do you know if the copyright's the same and everything too on that thing?
Yeah, it's the stamp on him is exactly it's head to toe exactly the same as, because Backblast he's a 1988 US character, which 1988 characters would have been released as well in 1989. Any of those open stock single carded figures carried forward at that point from one year to the next. At least the new characters did.
He might have been 89 actually. He might have been 89 now that I think.
Is he 89?
Maybe.
He is 89. No.
Okay.
Yes, he's 89. Am I messing up?
Okay, let's do this. 3djoes.com.
You're correct. He's 89.
He's 89. Okay.
I always mess up 88 and 89. I'm sorry.
No,
my mindset is on Snake Eyes because that's my dude. And Snake Eyes was available with China and Hong Kong. You're correct. He's 1989, but all the 89 open stock figures, when they were released in 1990, Hasbro had changed where their production was, where their facility was. And so if you buy an 89 character, the 1989 ones say made in Hong Kong on them, and the 1990 ones say made in China on them. And being a 1993 toy, he would be the later one. Now, it is a little weird if he was being manufactured for the United States for 1990. But the other thing to keep in mind is that he would be then after 1990, they would have been making quantities for Europe. So it matches. I haven't seen any changes past that initial change from made in Hong Kong to made in China. And those coincide with the greens changing on the figure. But I've not really noticed any differences between this Backblast and the later US Backblast.
Well, that's good to know because they could have just made too many of them and sent 200,000 over to Brazil or something like that because they were making them in huge numbers.
I would imagine that they were looking out for each other in some way. They probably, because you know how it is to hit your minimum order quantities.
Yep.
And to have another market to sell a large quantity of that figure would definitely help you hit your minimum order quantity. And then Hasbro helped them as well whenever you think about the fact that like mail-in Quick Kick was made by Estrela.
I did not know that part actually, but I think probably breezed by that when I was researching on 3D Joes because I'm always on that site, so I'm sure it's there. But see, that's why you're here again. Be the Professor Xavier version of Patrick Stewart. How about that?
I try. I mess up sometimes, but I try.
Get the psychic going. But this is interesting because they would have made quantities in much larger numbers back then. Like I had found a quote on the Art of G.I. Joe omnibus there where Vinny DeLeva actually says that they sold something like 500,000 of the Ninja Cycle from Ninja Force, right? And that's a vehicle. You're going to make more of toys. So that's kind of crazy how quantities have changed. So if they're sending a ton of them to Brazil to help build the Estrela line, that's freaking gold as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. It just makes me wonder, what was the design process behind these? Did they just kind of insert Backblast in where there was another design because that was going to be the cheaper way to go? I don't know.
You're right. That's where it would help to have their equivalent of, their marketing people or even their design people, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we get to, I think the one that a lot of people want to talk about here would be Kangor from the Big Boa mold. I love this pose you guys got there of Kangor.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to replicate the package art. Yes. I think that this was me who took these. I can't remember. The rule is to tell the difference between my photography and Philip's is if it's out of focus, it's mine. If it's perfectly in focus, it's Philip's.
So I enhanced the sharpness on this one, so I can't tell you whose exactly this is.
Okay.
All I know is that the dim photo on the left is mine. So that's my Big Boa from my history of G.I. Joe 1987 video. I just screenshotted that. I didn't repose him or anything like that. I just
I know that I didn't ever want to put the gloves on the figure because that's terrifying to wonder whether or not the thumbs are going to come back out or whether or not the gloves are going to split. So if you can look at it, he's actually just holding the gloves.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, he is actually just holding the gloves. Actually, that's actually
really
cool. Huh. And you're right. For Kangor, that would make sense. For Big Boa, it's easy to find a replacement figure body.
Yeah, but Kangor's much pricier, and this was one that was in such nice shape. It had been taken off the card. If this one is mine, which I think it is, he was just taken off the card by Anthony and then sold to me. Not played with in a rough way or anything. So he's in really good shape. I do think that he could have used the hose. They should have included that with the figure, but
say love you, right? Yeah. Did Anthony sell you these in the late 90s then, or did he sell them?
Yeah, that would have been early 2000s, I think.
So the figure wouldn't have been that old yet. It would have been less than 10 years old when you would have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, probably 5 years old, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were quantities of these things around. At the time, like these figures were a $30 figure.
Mm-hmm. And Anthony would have peeled them off the card probably when they were new, which is interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think everyone just kind of loves this one because it's Big Boa and because it's a Kangaroo. There's just a lot going for this particular one. Do you know if he's the priciest one of the Forca 4?
I don't know. I haven't really looked.
Yeah,
I could see that being the case, but he's also not the one who looks the most vibrantly different from his G.I. Joe counterpart, the American counterpart.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would assume that probably Urzor or Tigor probably would be the expensive ones.
Yeah,
maybe he would be though, because getting his accessories would probably be a bit more difficult.
Yeah, because I don't think they're exactly the same as Big Boas, right?
No, they're not. They're a harder plastic.
Oh, okay.
So
there we go. Yeah, I don't remember what I paid for Urzor. I think I got that like 5 or 6 years ago myself. So I'm lost as far as pricing is concerned as well. But looking again at the Bergen and the Estrela, like you can see the different patterns on the Kangaroo itself. And you mentioned earlier, the ear is inverted on the Estrela version.
Yeah, you could still kind of on the opposite side of him still see a bit of that concave ear, but it almost feels like they had lost some detail, so they were trying to put it back in. And I think that this is a case where the Bergen animal just looks a lot better than the Estrela one. And I've never seen a Bergen Kangaroo that was not hollow. As far as I know, they're all filled in. And some of them have details on the inside, like a texture to the insides of the legs on the Bergen toys. And I don't think I've seen that for the Kangaroo either. So I remember this was one of the last ones that I got before making this video, because I'd been holding out for a long time, hoping that one would get listed that did have the center filled in, but I've never been able to find that. May not exist.
I mean, do you like to get stuff for the sake of making a video, or do you already know you're going to get it regardless of whether you're going to make?
Well, I'd already been buying these
Okay,
prior
yeah,
to the video,
yeah,
but then, whenever it gives me more motivation in some ways, like let me put this all together. I need a kangaroo,
yeah.
and then go looking for one. And as you're as you're researching things, you gain a little bit more interest in it for a brief that month that you're really digging into it. But no, I'd had some of these already well before Philip and I talked about
Yeah,
doing the video.
you're right. The
And it's
video's
like,
in
well, I guess I need a
2022.
kangaroo.
Yeah, you've been buying these for over 20 years by the time the video came out. I'm
It,
realizing that.
yeah, and it would be on my semi-regular eBay searches,
Yeah,
so it would be something that I would just kind of dabble into looking into, but not go after hardcore or just pay market value. I would, put a couple bids in here and there on them, but not really go after them. That said, they're still not that expensive. Like buying some of the Bergen versions of these, I looked before we started talking and they were still cheap.
well, that's good to know, because now it'll potentially send me down a rabbit hole, because while we're having a casual conversation here about the Estrela Bergen GI Joe connection in this sort of like class 101 situation, I would love to I'm probably going to go back and revisit these as I start finding more, you know.
The thing that I want you to think about while you're doing that is, what animals did Bergen make that you would have liked to have seen in Forca Fera? Because there was a lot of options that they didn't take. And that would be just a fun avenue to go down, like just in your brain to just imagine.
That would be, because the circus
Yeah,
set, like you said, goes way beyond the circus stuff they did, goes way beyond the four animals we're looking at here,
it does.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then there's a lot of animals they didn't do. So,
right.
yeah, I mean, the reason all this came about, as I mentioned near the start of the video, is because I was looking at this, right? And the photos are from Articulated Points, as are many of the photos in this video, and the captions are this is just a screenshot from this video will release before I release the history of GI Joe 1993 sub teams and mailaways, because that's the section I had to break up 1993. And I came across some interesting conversations between Carson Metaxas and Vinny DeLeva about the plan to license a dinosaur,
Hmm.
right? Which is the one with the real arms, the proper arms you see on the left there, and the dinosaur that Hasbro actually got. And in the video you and Philip make, he speculates that the arms are kind of sharp and spindly and all that. He's like, I think this may not have passed quality or safety.
Yeah, I
And
think he
Vinny
said the
actually,
pull test.
oh,
So
maybe, oh,
maybe
yeah.
that when you grab them and pull, they may have been able to snap off.
And that may have been what Vinny was alluding to, because he more or less confirms Philip's theory on that, because he says that
Yeah.
the arms were too thin and spindly because it didn't pass Hasbro's quality testing. Which quality they were testing? Was it the pull test or whatever? Yeah, he more or less confirms what Philip's theory was. And then
Hmm.
and Hasbro has to go and tool up their own dinosaur and spend extra money,
Yeah,
right?
right. And that was also part of what at the time we put that video together, that we didn't have confirmed whether or not this was all on an official level as far as Hasbro getting the dinosaur from Imperial, because the fact that it changed made things a little bit cloudy as far as
Yeah,
information went. Was there ever a plan to have officially gotten that from Imperial? Because it's so close,
yeah.
it seems a little bit weird that Hasbro went in that direction and yet didn't use the Imperial dinosaur. So it was nice to hear him confirm that, yes, it was all done on the up and up, and they had an agreement, but then that agreement fell through because Imperial's toy didn't match the safety standards of Hasbro.
Yes, and then Hasbro had to spend extra money to go and actually, in a very hilarious way, because they're trying to save money, but now they've got to open up their factories to make their own dinosaur, and you get a
Yeah,
dinosaur that's like basically like a dog chew toy. I think you said in the video, like it's like not really a dinosaur. It's like it's got the essence of a dinosaur.
it's
I
like a
forget exactly what
placeholder for a dinosaur.
basically is what it
Yeah,
is, right? Right. It's like it tries to be a dinosaur, but it's not, and yet it's the more expensive one, and yet the Imperial toy one is cheaper, but is actually a better toy.
and
You
would
know,
have probably been in the same Toys R Us at the same time, because those things were ubiquitous. You could find them at any Toys R Us. Like there would just be that big metal bin of just
Yep.
random animals, and if you dug
Yep.
through, but then once it got to be Jurassic Park time, there were a little less random animals, and they were mostly all dinosaurs that were in those bins.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I was looking it up, and they weren't there, and they haven't gone up in price at all since you and Philip made that video. I
No, it's
think so.
probably, I think if you paid $20 for one shipped, you probably paid $5 to $10 too much.
Yeah, well, in the US,
In the US.
Yeah, that $5 to $10 will have to go to my Canadian shipping. But either way, I'm getting it for way less than I would pay for the dinky Hasbro dinosaur over there.
Yeah.
And yet it's making me want to get both. You know what I mean? Like it's
kind of worth having. As a G.I. Joe collector, the actual Imperial one, in some sense, is a pre-production toy to the one that came out.
Yeah.
So it's worth having for a very low price.
I mean, it's the same reason I like having the Macross / Robotech stuff in addition to Jetfire, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of pre-production-ish in terms of being a predecessor, precursor, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, this will show up in a future Toy Connections history video. But this has nothing to do with Bergen. It's just the history of how I found the whole Bergen thing, and it sent me down a rabbit hole. And now we've got this talk that you and I are having.
Yeah, we're going down that path quite a bit.
Oh, we are, absolutely. So my final slide really here, as far as this particular Bergen Toy Novelty and Estrela thing is concerned, is just basically I looked it up and found this on WikiWand, just about like Bergen was actually an American company that ended up closing in 1958. So it's quite interesting to see how it all sort of came about, right? And yeah, there it says there was founded in 1932, and then in the second paragraph says that that's when they switched to plastic or cellulose acetate in 1938, which I think is like a flammable plastic.
Right.
Yeah. And then
it has some sort of wood grain additive to it. I don't know if that's made for filler or if there was some sort of chemical process that was necessary to have the wood in there. It may have just been also to have it easily form. Who knows? I'm not sure. I would think that it would make it flammable, because if you have something made of wood, it's going to be flammable. And wood and petroleum product together seems really flammable to me. But that's a test that I haven't done.
No, and I recommend you don't try it right now. I don't even think chemistry labs would certify the safety of that.
No.
But anyway, what I do want to tell people in the audience here is, well, first off, hopefully they've enjoyed this sort of Forca Fera 101 thing, because as much as you and I take for granted the fact we have all these South American Joes, a lot of people are still learning about it now, and a lot of people are just coming into them in the last couple years here. But I will link your video, yours and Philip's video, in the description below. But have you got any like closing thoughts on Forca Fera and the Estrela line?
Not really. I appreciate you giving that link. I love being a part of something that invites more people in and allows them to learn about this stuff. I think my vote for the animal I would like to see as a 5th Forca Fera member is probably going to be this Bergen toy guy. Imagine that coming with I don't know, any of the water guys, like a wetsuit or a torpedo repaint or even an eel. Like what would a seal, or is this a sea lion? I'm not sure really.
Come with the Hydro Viper, Deep Six.
Yeah. How cool would that have been?
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah, that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, sorry, because I tried to remove you from solo layout and it kind of glitched. So I'm like, did my internet connection? I mean, if it's gonna glitch, it may as well glitch at the end when we're saying goodbye.
When we're wrapping up.
Yeah. So, look, everyone. I love having Patrick on here. I think he and Philip's channel is criminally underrated. Yes, they have a good audience there, right? Yes, they're well, past the monetization limit and everything. But I still think that the channel is smaller than it should be for the level of knowledge we get. I learned from these gentlemen. So
yeah, we're still not to the monetization limit, actually.
Is it because of the watch hours?
Yeah.
So the watch, that's what I mean by like, so I saw the 1,000. You're between 1 and 2,000 subscribers right now. So
Yeah, we've got more than that actually. It's gone up recently. I think we got like 1,400 maybe.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're between 1 and 2K. So
1 and
yeah.
2. Yeah, I was thinking you said 1 and 12. Yeah, it's 14.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hopefully it's more. Hopefully it's more by the time this video comes out. But yeah. The audience is great. It's just we maybe need more content, so there's more to watch and to get those hours up.
Yeah, and you're right, because there is a watch hours requirement on there as well. Some of your videos have done very well. Hopefully your latest Transformers adjacent video is one that can really help the channel grow. And if you ever need me to come on and give some sound bites or anything like that, I'm more than happy to.
I appreciate that.
Send you something.
We haven't been real good with having a lot of other people on, but that's something we hope to fix.
That's fine. I mean, like you said,
I'd love to have you on whenever we get to running on full steam and getting there. Yes.
But like you said, you really only do like one video a month anyway, right? And sometimes it can be hard to hit the ground running. But when you do put one up, I do find that I learned something. Like I'll have to go back. I'll take notes. When I'm doing a history video of mine, if you've covered a topic, I'll go back. I'll add it to my notes, right? And I only wish I discovered the channel sooner, because it could have helped me for some of the 80s G.I. Joe videos that I did back in.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We try. I try to pack in as much as possible so people don't. So that I retain people's interest. The analysis says I don't always retain everybody, but I try.
Well, thank you for your time on here, and anything you need, I'm here. So I guess we'll wave a goodbye of sorts to the audience.
Yep.
And subscribe to his channel down below, and subscribe to mine.
And to this one. And to this one, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Help us all grow. Thanks, everyone. Take care.